This is Nasha Kasha, Ukrainian Almanac, 28 minutes of stories about Ukrainian life. Nasha Kasha comes to you from Radio Western in London, Ontario, Canada. It is heard on 13 university and community radio stations in 8 provinces, from Newfoundland to British Columbia. We begin our story on the main campus of Arizona State University in Tempe. You're listening to the Arizona State University Marching Band, 80,000 students, more than 66,000 undergraduates, one of whom is my nephew, Bo.
I am Bodin Yemitz. I'm a freshman at the ASU Engineering Department, Arizona State University.
As you've grown up here, you were born here, right?
Yeah. The weather is really nice here. Everyone thinks it's too hot, but personally, when it is hot outside, you can just hang out at the pool or like inside, so it's really not that bad. I was born in Mesa, which is like 30 minutes away from Arizona State University. I grew up in a small suburb called Ahwatukee, which is probably like 20 minutes from where I am right now.
And what did you do growing up? What did you enjoy doing?
I played soccer my entire life from when I was like 4 years old to 17, 18. So that was my biggest focus. I just played in club sports and then for my high school team. And then I've also been really into cars here, like the car scene.
And tell me about your love of cars.
Currently, I drive a Mustang right now. I'm trying to build that up. And ever since I was like 10 or probably, I would always go to car meets and learn about the cars and learn what cars I like. And I'm trying to apply that knowledge into my future and into my career.
Okay, so you're in engineering. What facet of engineering do you want to specialize in?
My focus is in the automotive industry. I want to build the engines for the cars when I get older. Street supercars.
What is it about that?
I don't know. I guess I just love the speed and the exhilaration that the fast cars bring. And I just love the look and like how they accompany the wealth to it. And I want to be a part of that. So being in the automotive engineering, it will push me and get my foot in the door for that industry when I'm older. My main goal is to work for BMW. That's my essential goal.
How hard was it to get into ASU?
I personally wanted to go to California, to San Diego State University. I got accepted to that school, but it was too much money. And ASU is relatively easy to get into, but it wasn't my first choice.
So what's the tuition like?
The tuition right now is around $11,000 per year per student. At SDSU, it would be like $40,000 per year. So too much for me. I live in the engineering dorms, so that's another $8K per year.
What did you need to get in terms of marks, GPA, in order to get in?
You just need like a 3.5 GPA or higher. That's really all. B- to a B.
Oh, well, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad at all.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And how easy is it to drop out? I mean,
very easy. Just press a button. That's all.
How did you find the courses going in? I mean, it was stuff over your head, and did you have to catch up?
Honestly, it was pretty easy. Like high school sets you up pretty well for university, and it's just like a continuation of your classes. Just like high school, like you go from like one math to the next math, same thing, just in college.
So there was no huge learning curve for you?
No, not really. Not for me, at least.
Okay, and what's the easiest way to drop out? Are there temptations on campus?
I guess if you're in a fraternity, you have a more reason to drop out because your grades will be lower then. But other than that, there's not really a reason to drop out unless if you're failing.
You want to join a fraternity?
I want to join Sig Ep next year, Sigma Epsilon. Seems like they have a lot of fun, and we know some people in that one, and it seems like a good way to meet new people.
Okay, so a fraternity is one of the easiest ways to have to drop out of a university because you can't keep up with your marks and have fun. You want to join a fraternity. What's your plan to overcome that?
Some kids balance it, of course, which is what I plan on doing. So if you can balance like the partying and like the frat events with your classes, you should be fine.
Yeah.
So if it gets too hard, I'll just drop the frat and stay in my classes.
Okay, so tell me about a day. Give me today, for instance. What did you do?
So we're 2 weeks away from graduating, and yesterday I had a hard test. So today I went to my 2 classes, and after that I just hung out at the pool for like 3 hours since it's a nice day out here. Just kind of like a relaxation period for my next test next week.
And the hard test was in what?
It was a chemistry test. Just a basic course that everyone has to take, but it's definitely the hardest for me.
And how do you prepare? What is it that you do to get ready, to finish your assignments, and to be ready for the test?
I usually study at night, like past midnight, because I'm more of a night person, so I usually have more focus past midnight, and I study probably like 2-3 days before my test.
Now, you grew up in a Ukrainian family. Can you give me a little bit of a sense of that, where that fits in who you are today?
My sister is Sophia. She's a junior at the same high school I went to, and she plans on going to ASU when she graduates high school, just like I do, kind of like follow my footsteps. She wants to study nursing, I believe.
You guys close?
Yes, we are very close. Yes. I've never really been like heavy in Ukrainian culture, to be honest. My parents never really like pushed on me or brought it on me. I went to church as a kid a lot, but then now it's just kind of like fizzled out, to be honest. I think in today's culture, the relevance of each person's culture and their upbringings is slightly starting to fade out in life, and it's more just about how you are as a person, and that's how you connect. You don't really connect through cultural atmospheres anymore, I guess, if that's a good way to put it.
Okay, so do you compare notes with backgrounds in your dorm, with your roommates, and with the friends that you meet at restaurants like this one?
Essentially, my roommates are like Italian, for example, but like we talk about like his Italian past, but other than that, we don't talk about much more than like who he is now and like his own individual self. Like we don't accompany past cultures and your upbringing with who you are today.
What about food and?
All of us eat all kind of food. Like we're in a society where like everything is accessible like really easily. We can get Spanish or Italian food or any the kind of food we want like within like a mile radius.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore. Bells will ring, ting-a-ling-a-ling, ting-a-ling-a-ling, and you'll sing Vita Bella. Hearts will play tippe-tippe-te, tippe-tippe-te, like a gay tarantella. When the stars make you drool, just like pasta fasul, that's amore. When you dance down the street with a cloud at your feet, you're in love. When you walk in a dream, but you know you're not dreaming, signore. Scusami, but you see back in old Napoli, that's amore. Amore. That's amore.
Святковий день несемо в руках, щоб як ті народи і діти викликували тобі осана, так і ми в піснях і співах духовних досягли животворчого тридневного...
St. Mary's Ukrainian Orthodox Church is on North 10th Street in Phoenix. Father Petroma Zappa, his voice rich, intones the blessing of palm leaves and willow branches. Attendees will take them home. It is Easter in most of the Christian world on this day, but the Julian calendar is 1 week behind in this, the year of 2019.
Показав образ церкви через ковчег у дні праведника і угодника Ноя, провіщаючи пришестя.
To the right of the altar, just beyond the church pews, Irene Schvetz is raising money selling the Easter breads she baked.
Дякую, Вербабія, віднині за тиждень буде великий.
Ви продаєте паски?
Yeah. So help yourself.
It looks fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Why did you pick that one?
I don't know.
It caught your eye?
Yeah, $5.
Yes.
$5. Yep. I'll take it.
How are you this morning? My name is James Honemeyer, and I live here in Phoenix.
And have you been coming to this church for a long time?
I know for several months, but I wouldn't say a long time, not even a year yet.
Okay, now, Honemeyer, that doesn't sound Ukrainian.
Neither Ukrainian nor Russian. It's Dutch.
It's Dutch.
Yeah.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
And yet you're attending an Orthodox church.
Well, I was converted to Orthodoxy when I lived in Moscow. Then I moved back to Phoenix, and I've been, in fact, I sing normally in the choir at a church here in Phoenix. But over the past year or so, I became more attuned to the struggles between Ukraine and Russia, and made my call.
So you've come here instead.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, may I ask what you were doing in Moscow?
A journalist. I was with NBC Radio for a long time.
Okay. And may I ask the show?
Just news, reporting news.
Was it difficult to profess your faith while being a journalist?
Well, I've always tried to stay independent politically, because you need to report all sides, peel the onion all the way, across the the onion, so to speak. Faith, not really. I found it more difficult here in the U.S. Because the media here has a very anti-religious bias. But I don't really care about that. Divorced, unfortunately, after about 13 and a half years.
And you met in Russia?
We did, yes.
Is that how you came to know the Orthodox faith?
Well, my parents were Presbyterian missionaries. Go figure. But my father had a huge library. It included a lot of the church fathers, so I was not ignorant of the church fathers. And once I started going to Moscow and working there, I realized that I should, investigate the churches and so forth and choose a church. And one father in particular, Father Mikhail, of blessed memory, he just kind of loved me into Orthodoxy. We would have some very spirited debates about I have a degree in theology, and so we would talk back and forth about theology, and eventually I started to think, this makes sense, and I became Orthodox. It was just a natural extension, of having faith as part of my life.
Now, is the Presbyterian Church a part of the Dutch culture?
Well, they're cousins to the Dutch Reformed. They're in that same Reformation. It would be like Ukrainian Orthodoxy is very close to Georgian or Russian or Greek Orthodoxy.
Are you retired now?
No, I work as a freelance journalist, and I'll give you one of my ink pens. I do voice work.
Oh, is that?
I voice documentaries, commercials, e-learning projects. Hopefully in the fall or winter, I will marry a young lady. Well, she's not exactly young, but closer to my age, a lady from Zaporozhye.
Now, hopefully, is there a chance she'll say no?
No, we're already engaged, and she said yes. She has the ring to prove it. So.
Congratulations. Is the wedding in this church?
I hope, yes.
Now, Zaporizhzhia, did you meet over in Ukraine?
I did. In fact, I needed an assistant to go to Georgia with me on a photography project. And so I contracted with an agency there, and they put several people together. I chose her, and she said, I'll travel with you as long as you're a gentleman. And I said, it's no problem. We'll have separate sleeping arrangements. You're a lady, I'm a gentleman. And we were together several weeks in Georgia. She was of great help. And then we ended up, I'm also doing a project in Kyiv. And so she said, well, I'll help you out on this one too. And it just kind of blossomed from there.
Oh, isn't that great? Isn't that great? Which year was this in?
This was 2018.
And may I ask her name?
Yes, Tatiana.
Tatiana. Okay. Well, great. All the best to you. And thank you for talking to me.
You're welcome.
This is Nasha Kasha, Ukrainian Almanac. We come to you every week from CHRW 94.9 FM on the campus of Western University in London, Ontario, Canada. On CHMR 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland. On CKDU 88.1 FM in Halifax. On Local 107.3 FM in St. John, New Brunswick. On CJLO 1690 AM in Montreal. On CFRC 101.9 FM in Kingston, on CFMU 93.3 FM in Hamilton, on CKMS 102.7 FM in Kitchener-Waterloo, on CKLU 96.7 FM in Sudbury, on CILU 102.7 FM in Thunder Bay, on 101.5 UMFM in Winnipeg, on CFMQ 98.1 FM in Hudson Bay, Saskatchewan, and on CIVL 101.7 FM in Abbotsford, British Columbia. I'm your reporter, Stefan Andrusiak. Earlier in the program, you heard Rocco Granata singing That's Amore, and Zirka played the Ukrainian wedding march. Later in the program, you'll hear Okean Elzy with their song about leaving the cold behind to find the sun. It's simply called Sonce.
Hi, my name is Victor Shvets. I'm the board president of St. Mary's Protectress Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Phoenix, Arizona.
Hi, I'm Irene Schwez, and I'm Victor's wife. part of the sisterhood, so I participate in the baking and the luncheons that we throw and whatnot, trying to raise money for the church.
Hi, I'm George Schvetz. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. Victor's brother.
I was born in Chicago, Illinois, and moved out to the suburbs of Chicago. And eventually I met Victor at a Malanka, and we were married and have been married over 32 years.
It was in Chicago. That was the first time we met.
So this is Ukrainian New Year's in Chicago. Did you grow up? Were you born and raised in Chicago?
No, actually, I was born in Porto Alegre, Brazil. I was 1 year old when I came to the United States. I don't speak any Portuguese, but my parents spoke Ukrainian in the house, and to this day, I speak Ukrainian with my mom, and my dad has passed away, but that was the only language I spoke with my parents.
Victor's 4 years older than me. So I was born in Chicago, Illinois, and then we moved to Elkhart, Indiana when I was about 9, and we graduated from high school in Elkhart and went on to college at Purdue University. When I was in Chicago, I was pretty young. It was inner city. I don't remember a lot. I remember the schools were a little bit, different than being out in the rural area of Indiana. But I do remember my older brother taking care of me because, the parents were working a lot and they were new immigrants, and they kind of let the kids take care of each other.
I went to St. Volodymyr Ukrainian school on Saturdays. We hated it because all the kids stayed home and were watching cartoons, and we had to go to Ukrainian school. My parents, like my brother said, were working during that time, and we had to grab a bus, go 7 miles one way and then 3 miles another way. And, as 10, 11-year-olds, we were on these buses ourselves, getting ourselves to Ukrainian school. And then when we came back, we'd go to Odum, a Ukrainian youth organization, where we had singing and dancing and schodene, and learned about the Ukrainian culture.
The Organization of Democratic Ukrainian Youth?
That's the acronym for it. Об'єднання демократичної української молоді, Association of Ukrainian Youth of Ukrainian descent.
And your experience the same growing up?
I grew up Catholic, so I went to St. Joe's in Chicago, and I was the younger of 3, so my brother and sister weren't really active in the Ukrainian community. I started hanging out with my cousins who were Ukrainian dancers, and I met Victor's group of friends, and that's how we eventually met at the Ukrainian functions, and we're still all great friends today.
And what was the attraction?
He was a nice Ukrainian boy from Phoenix, and I was a nice Ukrainian girl from Chicago.
How did your family get to Phoenix from Chicago?
Actually, they came from Indiana. My mom, she's been having sort of health issues her whole life, and her doctors recommended that, to feel better, that she should move to the dry climate of Arizona. So her and my dad, actually my mom came out first, and then, my dad followed, and they moved out while I was in college. And after I graduated college, I kind of followed them out to Arizona to start my life sort of after education.
Your dad, was it hard for him to find new work in Arizona?
It was at the beginning. But once he found his first job here, he was pretty much set. He's a tool and die maker. He's very good at his craft. Even though his English at that time wasn't very good, once they saw the work he could do, he didn't have a problem finding work here.
What's it like moving from what I would call a Midwest northern climate? For sure. I mean, Chicago is pretty windy. It could be quite brutal. To Phoenix.
Oh, it was wonderful because I was always a summer girl. I love the summers. I love the heat. I hated the cold and rain and snow. And so I tell Victor all the time that's the reason I accepted his proposal, because it was more for the weather. But we've been out here, 35 years, and I don't miss the cold climate at all.
So much for you being a nice Ukrainian boy, and that's what hooked her.
Exactly.
Going for him.
I went to Illinois Institute of Technology. I got a job in Elkhart, Indiana at a place called Rollform Corporation. It was a small place. At Rollform, it took pieces of metal and shaped them into usable objects. I was a designer there on all their machinery, and one day I came in and the place was closed. The doors were locked and they had gone bankrupt and were out of business. My mom was coming here, or to Phoenix, Arizona at that time in the winters, and she said, why don't you go out to Phoenix and see what it's like out there, see if you like it. I took a drive out to Phoenix since I wasn't working at the time. I met a person here named Alex Saulenko who was working at Sperry Corporation in the aerospace industry at the time, and he recommended me to interview there, got me an interview. I interviewed and got a job, and 35 years later, I'm still working for the same company.
I graduated from Purdue. I had a degree in chemical engineering, and my parents had moved out to Phoenix, and I kind of followed them out there, and then we had the opportunity to purchase a pizza place. I ran that for like 26 years.
Did it give you pause to leave that, or were you ready to leave?
You know, being that I always think analytically, it was, you know, when we started the business, it was really small and it had the opportunity to grow. So, you know, the way I think my thought process works as an engineer was able to, you know, do a lot of things in the pizza industry as far as production and, you know, scaling up to make, you know, production manufacturing of a pizza on a smaller scale into, you know, a larger scale, or in a certain time period where you need to be able to produce that, you know, quickly in a short period of time. It's called Florencia Pizza. It's in Sun City, West Arizona.
You're also in this restaurant, right?
Well, when I was living in Chicago, I was working at Northern Trust Bank. They encouraged me to get my Series 7 license to get a job in the brokerage industry, because Northern Trust had just purchased a small brokerage firm. So I helped grow that team, and I was moving to Arizona. They're like, get your license. It'll open up all these doors for you in Arizona. So when I got my Series 7 license right before I left Chicago, ended up in Phoenix, worked for Dean Witter, Prudential Beige, but ended up at Charles Schwab, and I worked there for 20 years in the brokerage industry on the bond team. So I worked there for just about 20 years, and the corporate world kind of changed at that time, and I wasn't having a good time changing with it. And as it turned out, I was able to come to the family business and run the family business at that time. So I went from the brokerage world to Florencia Pizza, and I've been back in the business there for about 5 years.
Tell me about Ukrainian life in Phoenix.
Ukrainian life in Phoenix is very limited. We have a small Catholic church and a small Orthodox church here in Phoenix. We have a cultural center. We keep that building going just so we can have a place for Ukrainians to meet here.
How does the influx of immigrants from present-day Ukraine affect the size? You said it's a small Roma, the small community. Is it growing?
Oh, that's a hard one, because I think the community is much larger than we see in the church. On any given Sunday, there's maybe 40 people in church, but come Christmas or Easter, there's well over 200 people at church. So they're out there. They're just, for whatever reason, not active in the church.
The percentage of people that participate in the Ukrainian community here that have come here recently is probably the same, or if not larger, than in other communities around the country, whether it's Toronto or Chicago. We just have a very small influx of Ukrainians coming here, and mainly I think it's just because it's hard to get jobs here, especially blue-collar type jobs in in construction industry and stuff like that. We just don't have the Ukrainians who run these businesses and work in these industries to give the jobs that are necessary to the new immigrants that are coming here. I think that's why most of them go to the larger cities like Cleveland, Chicago, Toronto, wherever it may be. We might have 100 coming in here, and we've only got 10 that participate in our Ukrainian community.
The priest at this morning's service spoke exclusively in Ukrainian. Is there any talk about maybe loosening that up to make the service understandable to those who don't speak the language? It may be drawing people in from other cultures, or is that not where you want to go?
We're limited. We can't afford to bring in a bilingual priest. The priests that we've had in our community here have to work a full-time job and on a Sunday, be the priest at our parish.
Oh, is that right?
That's correct. So that makes it very tough for us to bring in, priests here that would speak English.
You said that it's not easy to get a blue-collar job here, but I'm going to ask you, what's the best part about living in the Phoenix area?
Well, obviously the best part of living in Arizona is the weather. It's really wonderful to live, in Arizona, not only because of how warm it is, but because of the dryness in the humidity. It makes life a lot simpler and much more enjoyable.
Where's the hope?
That more of the new people coming in participate more actively. Victor's family's been running it for quite a long time, and it'd be nice to have more participation from people coming in and be more active.
Is that a weight on you?
It is. But it's something that, like I said, my grandparents did it. I saw my parents do it. And it's just something that fell into my lap and something that I've wanted to do.
We highly recommend Phoenix, Arizona. Come on out. We have a wonderful Orthodox church in a very small community, but it's got room to grow. So come on down.
Yeah, we're all close here. We welcome all Ukrainians out here and non-Ukrainians too. It's a great place to live. The weather's great. It gets hot in the summertime, but the winters are beautiful here.
Nasha Kasha is also a podcast. Subscribe for free from the Apple iTunes Store and at most other podcast providers. We do gratefully acknowledge that partial funding for Nasha Kasha is provided by the Taras Shevchenko Foundation and by the Ukrainian Credit Union. Back in a week, God willing, до милої зустрічі за тиждень часу, дорогі слухачі.
Sabe